HB 14, Representative Cox and Villio's bill. We would ask that your testimony not be repetitive of others and try to be brief if you can, so we don't have to impose any sort of rules. But we're going to start out with Representative Cox's House Bill 14. So, Representative Cox, it's all you.
Thank you, Senator. This is a bill authored by Rep Villio and myself, and it's very simple. It just adds cruelty to persons with infirmities to the list of crimes, such as aggravated kidnapping, assault by shooting, cruelty to juveniles. It adds cruelties to persons with infirmities. And Mr. Alman from the Jefferson Parish DA's office here if y'all have any specific legal questions.
Okay. Mr. Alman, if you want to introduce yourself and give us your testimony, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members, Darren Alman with the Jefferson Parish DA's office. We appreciate Representative Cox bringing this bill. Essentially, for a little bit of brief background, we all probably know what felony murder is. At common law, you commit a certain serious felony, someone dies as a result, you're guilty of that homicide. In Louisiana, we have a list of felonies that are considered, quote, bad enough to be predicates for felony murder. So you commit this felony, someone dies, it's second-degree murder. Or if you commit that felony and someone dies and you intended it, it's first-degree murder. For other felonies not on the murder list, it's manslaughter. In 2006, this body made the very wise decision to add cruelty to juveniles to the list of crimes for felony murder. Rightfully so, juveniles are dependent on their caretakers and are uniquely vulnerable. We're adding a mirror provision today, cruelty to persons with infirmities. Persons with infirmities, very similar to juveniles, are also uniquely dependent on their caretakers. They're also vulnerable to mistreatment. And this bill came out of a really bad case out of our parish, where an individual with a severe intellectual disability was horrifically mistreated by his caretakers, resulting in his death. And all we could charge there was manslaughter. While we can't get him the justice he deserves, I believe we can pass this bill in his memory and protect future victims. And to just preemptively address an issue that's been raised with this bill before, some have expressed some concern that this would open it up to charging people with murder based on negligence. Well, first, cruelty to the infirm mirrors cruelty to juveniles. Both of them punish maltreatment that's either intentional or by criminal negligence. And there's a Louisiana Supreme Court case, State v. Small, that puts a limiting construction on both. State v. Small said it's okay to have cruelty as a predicate for felony murder, and it's even okay for the legislature to make certain acts of neglect that result in death punishable as murder. The only thing you can't do, as per State v. Small, is use negligent failure to supervise as a predicate for murder. The Louisiana Supreme Court said, rightfully so, that more direct acts of neglect, such as starving somebody, malnourishment, those can legally form the predicate for murder. And we also have a very brief amendment that is intended to mirror some language in Representative Cox's other bill. You know, whatever the committee
has the staff been alerted to the amendment?
No, sir. I have a copy of it here.
Okay. Well, we got to get our staff to write it up. You can hand it to the Sergeant-at-Arms.
Sure.
And we'll take a look at it. It might end up having to be a floor amendment.
I understand, Mr. Chair, and that's fine. It's very technical. Representative Cox's other bill, brought on behalf of the Banking Association, makes a technical change to the title of this crime, and all the amendment does is make the two bills mirror each other.
Okay. Well, the board is clear. Right now, there's no questions. We do have Brandy Melissa wants to come and testify. While we got a lull in the action here, we do have some a letter that was sent in that asked that we this is on 14, that we distribute this to the committee members. If staff can pass these letters out. and make them a part of the record. Hello, Brandy.
Morning.
You want to give us your testimony?
Chairman Morris, Vice Chairman Abraham, members of the committee. The last time I testified before you, I pushed through a seizure to help strengthen penalties for strangulation. Today, I'm speaking against medical advice because we are failing victims who are no longer able to speak for themselves. There's a belief that most people caring for infirmed loved ones are themselves infirmed. That's not always the case. In East Baton Rouge, we've had able-bodied adults let vulnerable family members die in conditions no one should endure. One woman in Clinton literally melted into a couch, neglected by her healthy, respected parents. That's not caregiving, that's cruelty. I know what caregiving looks like because I did it. On May 21st, 2016, my mom fell and was rushed to the ER. That fall uncovered 3 brain aneurysms caused by years of domestic abuse. Doctor said she wouldn't make it through the night. I reminded them that they were talking about a woman who raised a child doctors had already given up on. 17 days later, she walked out of that hospital. For the next 18 months, I was her full-time caregiver. I turned her to prevent bed sores. I protected her, preserved her dignity every single day. And I did that all with only one side of my body functioning due to medical effects of the abuse she endured while pregnant with me. But I never made excuses. I had love, knowledge, and responsibility. And when I needed help, I asked and it came. On Thanksgiving Eve 2017, her aneurysms ruptured. The long-term effects of trauma finally took her from me. I miss her every day, but I live with peace, not guilt, because I gave her care she deserved. That's why I struggle to feel sympathy for able-bodied people who leave their loved ones to suffer and die. If I could do what I did while facing significant physical limitations, so can they. And if they choose not to, they should be held accountable. This bill ensures that when a person with infirmities from abuse dies from abuse or neglect, the justice system treats that death with the seriousness it deserves. It closes a fatal loophole and protects the most vulnerable among us. The administration says crime victims matter, but every year one of the top budget priorities to cut is the very services like Faith House that help victims survive after escaping death's door. If crime victims truly matter, we wouldn't need this bill. Representative Cox could be up here talking about how Gretna has the best parades in the state because it did my whole childhood. But instead, he's fighting to make sure infirm victims don't die without justice. We also call ourselves a pro-life state, but that principle must go beyond birth. Life with infirmities deserves the same protection as life in the womb. And to those who feel compelled to take extreme measures in the name of duty, I urge you to use your vote to protect life, not to deepen the wounds of those already carrying pain. Choose a path that upholds dignity, not one that perpetrates harm. This is your opportunity to put principle into practice and ensure no victim is forgotten. I respectfully urge you to pass this bill. Thank you. And for those who don't know, this was me and my mom a year before she passed.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you for your advocacy. I do have a quick question. Mr. Alleman, you talked about that this definition of cruelty to persons with infirmities, that's been limited by the Supreme Court, you said, to direct acts of negligence?
Yes, sir. The Louisiana Supreme Court said while negligence-based cruelty can be the predicate for murder, it can't be negligent supervision. The State v. Small case was a situation where a mother left their children unsupervised in the house and they started a fire and tragically passed away. And the Supreme Court said while a more direct act of neglect like malnourishment might be enough for murder, they were going to put a limiting construction such that if it's just negligent failure to supervise, we can't use that as a predicate for murder.
First degree murder is a capital offense.
It is, yes, sir.
And so I don't want to execute anybody for negligence.
Sure. And to
per
address
se.
your concern on that, Mr. Chair, for first-degree murder, specific intent to kill or inflict harm is always required.
Okay.
It's just for second-degree murder that you don't have to have the intent to kill or inflict great bodily harm. But first-degree, it's always an element.
Okay,
of
so
intent.
that doesn't change that.
Yes, sir. First-degree murder is basically underlying felony plus intent, whereas second-degree murder is
Okay.
either intent or felony.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
the intent part's always there.
first
Senator
degree, yes,
Barrow
sir.
does have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for asking that question and getting that cleared and clarified. I do want to thank Brandy. It's so good to see you. I haven't seen you the entire session, and we certainly have missed seeing you coming and advocating. I really want to reemphasize the importance of your testimony as it relates to those with infirmities, and just having the real-life testimony and someone to speak to that issue, I think, is extremely important. So I just wanted to commend you on doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Barrow. Okay, board is clear. If you all could move from the table, we do have somebody to speak in opposition. We have a couple of other green cards in support not wishing to speak. Christine Russell, District Attorney. She's also president currently of the Louisiana District Attorneys Association. Also, Zach Daniels, Executive Director of the Louisiana District Attorneys Association, both in support, not wishing to speak. And now we have Ms. Garvey, I believe, coming to testify. She's our only
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
red card today on this bill.
Yes, sir. Good morning, committee. Megan Garvey from the Louisiana Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. I have a very narrow and specific issue with the bill. I heard the testimony in ACJ. I understand the concern for vulnerable people. This is similar to the question that you raised, Chairman Morris, as to intentionality. I do think that the second part of the bill that touches on second-degree murder should also be amended to include intentionality. I heard what Mr. Alleman said about the case law, but I think when we're setting out to write a new bill, I think we might as well just put what we want the bill to do in the bill rather than relying on possible interpretations of case law. So I hope that this makes sense given that there are some amendments here. But the suggestion that I had, and the reason I'm making the suggestion, if anybody's willing to consider it, is that I think when we're charging people with murder, right, a charge which carries life without the possibility of parole as to the second-degree murder charge, I think it's important that we punish people with the requisite mens rea, with the intent to do something intentional. And if you look at cruelty to a person with infirmities, there is a negligence component to that, and I would just ask that we tighten this bill up to do what it seems like the sponsor and the DAs are hoping it will do, and change the second part of the bill that refers to second-degree murder to include the phrase "when committed intentionally," following the phrase "cruelty to persons with infirmities." I understand what they're saying about the case law, but like I said, we have the opportunity to get the bill right the first time, and I would just ask that we consider that.
I understand. What about, do you have the bill in front of you by any chance?
No, I can pull it up. But
Well, it says second-degree murder is the killing of a human being, and then, of course, we don't have part one of that, but we have part two, when the offender is engaged in the perpetration or attempted perpetration of aggravated or first-degree rape, forcible or second-degree rape, aggravated arson, aggravated burglary, aggravated kidnapping, second-degree kidnapping, aggravated escape, assault by drive-by shooting, armed robbery, first-degree robbery, second-degree robbery, simple robbery, cruelty to juveniles, second-degree cruelty to juveniles, and then you got adding cruelty to persons with infirmity. So if we added the word intentional cruelty to persons with infirmities, Does that satisfy your?
It does, sir. Yes, sir. Because all of those other charges that we're listing out, like, I mean, this is essentially like a felony murder statute. Those
Right.
all require a specific intent beyond negligence, and I think that's appropriate for something.
Yeah, all
that's
have an
murder.
intent or center requirement, I think. I haven't looked at all the definitions, but most of those, I'm sure, most all of them I remember actually have a center requirement, but, so why don't we do I'd like to prepare a second amendment just to add the word intentional on line 6, after the word juveniles and the word and the comma. But we do have a separate amendment that Mr. Alamon had discussed, but I'm going to let you finish are you finished with your
That's
opposition?
it for today. Yes, sir. And if
Okay.
there's anything that I can do to help the committee in finding the language or anything to make it move more quickly, I'm happy to help, and I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. We have the amendment by Mr. Alamon. I'll offer it up. Are there any questions about this amendment? Any objection to the adoption amendment? Okay, so amendment set 2308 will be adopted. How long? Okay, we might can do this bill in concept. I don't know that we need to. I don't know that we need to have a written word, do we, Alden? Okay, I'm going to offer up the amendment in concept, which is adding one word to line 6 on page 2 to insert the word intentional in front of the word cruelty. Is there any objection to the adoption of that? There being none, that will be adopted. The board is clear. Representative Cox, do you want to close on your bill? Would you like to waive? He would like to waive. I'll move to report House Bill 14 with amendments. Is there any objection? There being none, that bill will be reported with amendments. Thank you, Representative Cox.